on video in a little bit.
I saw him on the phone a little bit ago too, but I don't see him now.
I'm Chair. Can you guys hear me?
Great. Okay.
Okay, why don't we start?
Brett, can you please count us down? You're live, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, everybody. We call the meeting to order. Want to take the roll, please?
Superintendent Chaudhary.
Here.
Secretary Churchill.
Here.
Ms. Eberhardt.
I'm here.
Mr. Gibbons is absent. Ms. Lala.
Here.
Mr. Lombardo is absent. Secretary McCord.
Here.
And Chair Casemeyer.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Fellow members, we, as you know, we lost one of our board members tragically since our last meeting, Debbie Avera, and we'd like to say a few words about her. Cassandra's got some comments she'd like to make initially. Cassandra?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today, we take a moment to remember IAC member Denise Ibarra. Denise lost a battle with cancer on October 19th at just 57 years old. She's survived by 3 sons, Christian, John, and Stephen, as well as her husband and her mother. We will remember Denise as a committed member to the mission of the IAC, serving as an appointee of the governor and a dedicated advocate for Maryland's public schools. The former president of the Westtown Elementary PTA in Catonsville, Denise developed an air conditioning initiative for the aging building, which led to a grassroots effort for a completely new school that opened in 2016. Denise received a Comptroller's Medallion in 2015 for her advocacy and a certificate of recognition from the Comptroller in 2016 for her leadership with the PTA and her work on the Cool School Initiative. Denise also received a Maryland Hero Award for her service on the Comptroller's Educational Advisory Council. Denise leaves behind a lasting mark on her local community and the state of Maryland and will be greatly missed. Our thoughts and prayers are with her family and friends as they mourn her tremendous loss.
Thank you, Cassandra. Fellow members, I'd like us to take a few moments of silence in honor of Denise. Thank you very much. Bob, any revisions to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, on item number 6, I will present that item rather than Brett Weskowitz.
Okay. Any public comment?
No public comment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's move to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes from the October 14th meeting. Any corrections? Secretary McCord.
No, I would move for the approval of the entire consent agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes, the contract awards, the project closeouts, and the Harford County site approval for the Homestead Wakefield School, a place which I taught French for just a little bit of time.
Oui.
Yes. Yes.
Do I hear a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion about the Secretary's motion? Anybody have any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, Bob, the quarterly report for the project activity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These are informational items, and we are. We can read through these item by item. They're intended for information, and might be best if I stand for questions, or anybody can follow up afterwards if they have questions on anything. I'd be glad to give you more information.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns about any of these issues E through H on your agenda? Okay, good. Let's move to item number 2, Built to Learn project approvals. Arabia?
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
The Built to Learn Act of 2020 empowers the Maryland Stadium Authority to sell revenue bonds to fund school construction projects approved by the IAC on a year-round basis. Project evaluations for IAC approval are based on project readiness, scope of work, total cost of ownership, cash flow needs, and educational specifications that are reviewed and supported for technical sufficiency by the IAC staff. To date, the Interagency Commission on School Construction has approved 14 projects totaling $283 million through the Build to Learn program. Today, we ask the Commission to consider approving staff recommendations for 9 more projects, totaling $263 million. The state share for the total Build to Learn program will increase to $545 million. Projects eligible for these state funds are those identified in the table on page 393 of the agenda, and includes planning, design, furniture, and fixtures as part of the overall cost, unless otherwise directed by the LEA to exclude. In accordance with the Act, counties with a 50% state share are eligible for additional gross square footage up to 150% above the gross area baseline. For this round of recommendations, Montgomery County projects fall in this category. For your convenience, we have attached the computation worksheets used to calculate the maximum state construction cost for each project, eligible project. I would like to disclose that an error was detected on the Build to Learn worksheet for Medalla replacement project after the agenda was originally published. The calculation error has been corrected and is now reflected in the published agenda on the website. It is anticipated that the next round of Build to Learn projects will be recommended to the Commission in January of 2022, which is when it is expected that all outstanding issues for that round of potential projects will be resolved. The Chief of the Maryland State Department of Education Schools Facility Branch and the IAC's lead regional facility manager are available to respond to any technical questions you may have. So we now stand for questions or clarifications.
Any questions for Arabia? How many schools represented by the $260 million?
It's a total, well, mainly it's the larger counties. So I'm going to say Anne Arundel.
How many individual schools?
Total, it's 9 plus the 14. So.
Okay. Any questions of interest to Arabia? So Arabia, you want to state the motion again, please?
The motion is, I'm sorry, I don't even hear the motion. Hold on 1 second. To approve projects as presented to be funded, executed through the Build to Learn Act, with allocations estimated to total approximately $263,735,062. Final funding amounts are subject to adjustment based on finalization of project worksheets and review of project eligibility.
We'll hear a motion.
Motion.
Second?
Second, Gloria Lawler.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right, thank you.
So thank you, Arabia. So last month we had a little briefing from Cassandra about school funding. So we're going to try to do something like that every month to give us some more background on how this whole system works. So Cassandra, you want to tell us what you're going to talk about today?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So today we are going to talk about the projects that are funded through the Healthy School Facility Fund. This is actually approval of these projects is the next item on your agenda. So before you do make those approvals, we wanted to do a brief presentation on the program as a reminder for the members who have approved these before and also for the public who watch our meetings. So the Healthy School Facility Fund was established by legislation in 2018 and requires the IAC to develop administrative procedures and to approve projects from the program. The program is used to address health and safety needs in school facilities. The procedures guide for the program requires that projects be funded in priority order. The highest priority projects are those that demonstrate an immediate life, safety, or health environmental risk. That includes any issue that's severe enough to cause a school to close or lead in water above 20 parts per billion. Second in the priority list is lead and water between 5 and 20 parts per billion. Then roofs, which just became eligible actually in this year's round of funding. This was not an eligible category in prior iterations of the Healthy School Facility Fund. Then air conditioning and heating. But I do want to remind you that if the air conditioning and heating were so unreliable that they caused a school to close, they would be in that first category, not here. So this is just air conditioning and heating where there are some more moderate problems than complete failure. And finally, indoor plumbing, indoor air quality, and windows. Any project in one of the categories that I just described is eligible as long as the total project cost is more than $3,000, though this minimum can actually be waived if it's justified by the LEA. Some costs are ineligible through this program. These projects require a local share, which can't be supplanted by state funding. Funds have to be used to improve buildings where students are educated. It can't pay for staff salaries, and it doesn't pay for projects in gyms unless those gyms serve as a teaching station for students with critical special needs or have a direct impact on educational services that are extensive enough to require the school to be closed. Funding is approved in the capital budget each year and is required at $30 million per year for fiscal years 20 through 22 and at $40 million per year for fiscal year 23 and 24. For fiscal years 21 through 24, Baltimore City is required to receive half of the available funding. It should be noted that the IAC received funding for FY21. However, due to budget uncertainties as a result of COVID-19, we worked closely with DBM and decided to postpone allocation of the FY21 funding. So in the approvals that you'll make in the next agenda item, you will be approving $30 million in funding from FY21, $30 million in funding from FY22. And we also received an additional $40 million in federal ARPA funds, resulting in a total available funding amount of $100 million. This year, we did roll out a simplified online application process. When an LEA applies for a project, they're required to describe the scope of the project and the specific issue that they're correcting. Projects funded with FY21 funds have to be substantially expended by October of next year, and projects funded with FY22 funds have to be substantially expended by October of 2023. And with that, Mr. Chair, I can stand for questions.
Thank you, Cassandra. Anybody have any questions on Cassandra's discussion about healthy schools? I have one question, Cassandra. It was about the second slide about eligibility and had buildings owned by the Board of Education or something like that. You call it? What does that mean? What did that mean?
What that was saying is the building has to be a public school building. It has to be owned by a Board of Education. And it also has to be used for educating students. So something like an administration building wouldn't be eligible under this program.
Garage, okay. Thank you for doing that homework. If there's no questions, let's move on to the report that Cassandra referred to, our Healthy School Facility Fund project approvals. Key Aaron's going to do that for us.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commission members. We are requesting the approval of the Healthy School project allocations as identified in the project request and recommendations worksheet. The IAC has a total of $105.2 million available for allocation through the Healthy Schools Facility Program. This is made up of $5.2 million fiscal year 21, $30 million from fiscal year 22, and $40 million from fiscal year 22 in American Rescue Plan Act funding, which must be used specifically to address heating, ventilation, and air conditioning projects. Baltimore City Public Schools in fiscal years 2021 and 2022. Today, we are recommending $102.8 million in project allocations in 17 different LEAs and Maryland School for the Blind for approval. Of the project recommendations, $49.7 million are for HVAC projects, $39.5 million are for roof projects, $5.1 million are for temperature regulation, 3.8 for window projects, 3.5 million are for roof and HVAC combined projects, 1.13 million are for lead remediation projects, 0.4 million for palming, and 0.3 million at Homestead Wakefield in Haverford County is funding for bottled water only, as the school is scheduled to be replaced in the near future. If today's motion is passed, Baltimore City will have a remaining allocation of $2.4 million and has until April 12th, 2022 to submit healthy school facility projects for approval. Statute allowed for a separate approval process and project allocations as presented in the recommendation worksheet. I'm now available to answer any questions and to read the motion for approval.
Thank you, Kiara. Any questions? Okay, you want to read the motion, please? Kiara, you want to read that motion again?
Yep. The motion is to approve the fiscal year 2021 and 2022 Healthy School Facility Fund allocations as recommended, including 50% of total fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22 allocations to Baltimore City in accordance with Educational Article 5-322, totaling $5,216,893 in recycled fiscal year 2020 Healthy School funding, $30 million in fiscal year 2021 Healthy School funding, including $15 million to Baltimore City, $30 million in fiscal year 2022 Healthy Schools Facilities funding, including $15 million to Baltimore City, $40 million in fiscal year 2022 American Rescue Plan Act funding, including $20 million to Baltimore City.
Thank you. Do you hear a motion?
Gloria Lawler.
Okay, her second. Thank you, Linda. Any more discussion? All in favor of school safety extension?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Now, will this funding address some of the problems we had last fall with the opening of these schools, especially in Baltimore, with the heat problem and the weather problem? I'm asking that because there's been a lot of criticism.
I understand.
Mr. Chair, if I could answer.
Yes. Go ahead, Bob.
This funding goes partially towards that, as well as the later on in our earlier on in our IP funding. So it all works together towards resolving those heating problems that we heard about. A lot of vertical package units have gone into those.
How many schools need to be air conditioned yet in Baltimore City?
I'll have to. Let me look that up, and I'll get back to you before the end of the meeting.
Okay, good enough.
Mr. Chairman, one last statement. This money is being approved to do that, but the projects will not be completed by this time next year. I don't think. So the money is en route to addressing this problem.
Correct, but we've had another program that is dedicated totally to the air conditioning improvement, which Bob will talk about maybe later on when it gets that number. Okay, Jamie, do you want to get into the school safety grant program for Baltimore City?
Sure do. One thing I would add, Ms. Lala, that the Healthy School Facility Fund application requests from Baltimore City include a number of full HVAC replacement projects that will address both heating and cooling. So it's a pretty good package, and they do have at least about $50 million to spend on it. So with that said, good morning, members of the commission. It's really good to see you. Before you to introduce item 5, an action item. It is the School Safety Grant Program application period extension for Baltimore City Public Schools. And that action item can be found on page 426 of your agenda. First, I'll provide some background, stand for questions, and then I will, at your discretion. At the meeting of the IAC on July 8, 2021, the Commission approved the allocation of FY 2021 SSGP funding, and at the same time approved the updated administrative procedures guide for the program. Because all program funds must be contracted before the end of FY 2022, a compressed application period began on July 9th.